Yeah, see? You
Apparently, I
don't
didn't
see that.
quite get the right chocolate bar though. I got the Kinder Bueno, but they have wafer in it, and it didn't melt as nice because of the
Oh, right,
cookie.
yeah.
What kind did you
So
use when
I
at the hackathon?
it's the one it's called Riegel. I don't know whether it's probably not called Riegel in the US or in North
Ah,
America.
I don't live in
Um,
the U.S. Just
it's
so
one
you
of
know.
those. Yeah, I know. It's one of those Kinder bars.
Yeah, so
If you
I bought a Kinder Bueno and it wasn't the right one. I'll
yeah
have to try to find the other kind of Kinder.
yeah, or just use regular chocolate. I mean, I
Yeah.
did a couple of experiments.
When I tried to do it at home, I used so they're kind of like chocolate chips, but they're little squares. They're for chocolate chunks, like for cookies. But
Yeah,
they're kind of meant to stay kind of solid even when you bake it in a cookie, and so they
enough.
didn't
Yeah.
melt very nicely.
Mm.
And the dark chocolate was maybe a little too intense. Um,
Yeah,
I think it
depending
would have been
on
better
what you
to
like.
do.
White chocolate is good because color is
Well,
also
just a
matching.
lighter, creamier chocolate would be better, I think, for that particular use case.
It's important how you cut the bananas. You cut it from the side, not from the not like a canoe, but from the side. So that the let's
Right.
say
Yeah.
this
I laid it on the side so that they rest
yeah
nicely on the barbecue and don't try to run away
yeah
or fall
exactly
over.
because otherwise it's just all dripping and not very nice. And the peel can go really dark before it starts to get dangerous.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
the
They can
inside
get
is well
quite
protected.
black. But yeah, the peel you don't care about. You're not going to eat it, right? You're just going to scoop it out with a spoon.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to do a little bit more variations and see what I like best, and then next year I have a whole dessert menu with bananas. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We should do that.
Yep. Okay.
We should do a cooking show at one point.
I remember there used to be one like that. There used to be one called Control Alt Chicken, and it was pretty good.
Yeah, things like that. I mean, yeah, the bananas aren't that popular yet. I watched it on another YouTube channel, and it was like, this is something relatively easy to do and well worth trying. Okay, round up. Oop.
Sorry, I'm just opening tabs. I was a bit behind today, so didn't do as much of that as I was planning
Oh yeah,
to.
that's okay. That's why we have the breaks. Cook me a BSD. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ah, we're
So the
getting
problem
more
with the BSD
suggestions.
bit here is we're advertising the BSD
Uh,
Pizza Night that's tomorrow on an episode that will come out in
yeah, that's not
August.
gonna work.
Do they have a connection to this for the recurringness? I wonder.
Yeah, then we can just announce it generally and see whether people have time next month. Google Calendar. Browse events. Oh, these are all events.
No, I got BSD events. I got all
Oh
ones
yeah, is
tagged
that
BSD, which
even
includes
maintained?
the plug meetings and BSD Pizza Night.
Hmm. Okay.
But yeah, we can talk a little bit about that because I happen to know how it works.
The oh yeah, the matching stuff, the globbing.
No. I've the BSD Pizza Night.
Oh, well, just combine two good things, BSD and pizza.
Yep. Right, but like they're very special in that they don't go to the same pizza place. They go to a different pizza place every week, or well, it's
Oh,
once
like
a month, I
a
think.
pizza bar crawl
Yes.
of sorts.
They have so far. They've been doing it for quite a while, and so far have not gone to the same place twice.
Hmm.
What's going on here? Okay.
Well, FreeBSD and pizza, it's all about disk partitioning in UFS, like slices and all that. Back in the old days, where we had to use slices for our disks. Okay. Oh, scrolling back.
Okay, that one and that one and that one. 1 second.
Oh, these look
Can
like
you do
longer
the
than
clap
the.
thing again? Although make sure you clap where I can see your hands.
Okay. One. No, one. Should start with one on the countdown.
You can go either way. I just need to see the numbers.
Back up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Is that in the video without crashing the
Close
place?
enough. Although you just do it between you
Okay,
and the
so-
microphone. Instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, how could it be?
Stop clobbering the microphone. It probably hurts your ears a bit when you hit the microphone with your arm.
Yeah. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, seems good enough. Okay.
Better. Yeah. Okay.
You might want to fix your microphone. It's kind of plopped over sideways.
Yeah.
Well, I meant more of that.
One.
It's like this.
Whoa. I need to see my picture in picture, then I know how it looks.
I'm assuming the bolt that's right at the microphone to make
Yeah.
it. See the top of the microphone? How
Yeah.
it's pointing way off to the side? Yes.
Ah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah. If I sit here, then yeah. Not
Sorry.
here.
That's not really what I meant. Right.
This goes up.
Yes. Why is it going this way?
It shouldn't. Well. Is that
There you
better?
go. Yes.
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
And then now you just got to get it in front of your face again.
Different. I hide behind the microphone. Yes, that's the idea.
I think you need to move it now, right?
A little bit more.
There you go.
Ah,
That's
whole
good.
new experience.
Good now. All right.
Oh, nice. There's someone counting in German. I should have done this in German.
All right, so you want to do the rake one, and I'll do the
Right.
Klopp one?
Yep.
Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
1 second. I forgot to change shots back after I did that. Anyway. And recording.
So it's time for a news roundup this week. We have a blog post about his self-hosted HTTPD blog by Reik Flöter. He starts the message with, "I really like Twitter because it allows me to share short messages. We have a great community and 140 characters are enough for everybody." And this statement was exactly 140 characters, but sometimes I want to say more than that. And that's why I finally created this new blog. I was never really into blogging because I barely had time or the audience to write long articles. He sometimes wrote short stories for sites like undeadly.org and collected some of them there. But with his own blog, he hosted on Tumblr and never saw any activity. I want to try it again, and this time I decided to create a self-hosted blog, something that runs on my own server and with HTTPD, the web server that I wrote for OpenBSD. Well, eat your own dog food here. So I was looking for a potential blogging tool that I could use to run his own blog. Besides the popular and heavyweight ones such as WordPress, there are countless other options. I looked at blogs from fellow developers such as Ted Unang's Flag. We've covered a couple of times in the show. He likes the fact that it's written in Lua, but the implementation is a bit over his head. Pelican, that is used by Peter Hessler for Bad.Network, but sorry, I don't like Python. And finally, Christap's blog that is used for all of his projects and blogs, and blog entries there. So he decided to use SBLG, the one that Kristaps is using. And Kristaps keeps on releasing very useful free software. Most well-known is ManDoc, at least everyone is using it for man pages these days. But there is also his BCHS, or Beaches web stack, which strongly advertises OpenBSD's HTTPD. Great. I also use KCGI, whether I have to write small CGIs, or Common Gateway Interface scripts. So SBLG seems like the right choice to me. Let me quickly iterate over my current makefile. I keep on tweeting this file, so it might have been changed by the time you are reading this article. Please note that the makefile is written for OpenBSD's make, a distant derivative of pmake, which is not like GNU make. And Reik continues to write that he's not a designer or web developer, but I appreciate good-looking web pages. I wanted to have something that is responsive, works on desktops and mobiles, looks somewhat modern, works without JavaScript, oh yes, but doesn't disqualify me for all the eye candy of a geek point of view. He bootstrapped the theme by creating a simple grid layout with a fairly typical blog style: banner, top menu, middle text, and sidebar. In 2017, Bootstrap is probably a vintage or retro framework, but it makes it very easy to create responsive pages with a proper layout and without caring about all the CSS and HTML5 madness too much. He also uses Font Awesome because it is awesome, provides some fancy icons, and has been suggested by SBLG's example templates. Let's blame Kristaps for it. I do not include any JavaScript, which prevents me from using Bootstrap's responsive hamburger menu. Okay. He continues, I have to admit that Reik Flöter is not an ideal name for a blog. My actual name is Reik Flöter, and I normally use my first name Reik as a user and nickname. But it was taken when
I think people might have missed the important bit there. So Reik's name is spelled F-L-O with little dots on top, T-E-R.
Yeah.
But that gets, anglicized to Flöter, which is F-L-O-E-T-E-R. So he's saying, well, the domain name is how you'd spell his name in English. That's not his actual name. And so obviously it's kind of a confusing name for his website.
Although you can have umlauts now in domain names, it looks ugly when you see it.
Your actual domain name ends up being like XN -- gibberish.
Yeah, not very nice to enter it into a browser bar. Anyway, So he picked that one in a few places. And he's aware that his German last name is nearly unpronounceable for others. That's why, that's what Alan mentioned just now, that maybe some of these might not be very, if he had used his real name, then this might not be the proper typable name. In addition to the domain, he also needed a good blog name or tagline. A very memorable example in the BSD world is Peter Hanstein's "That Grumpy BSD Guy" blog. So what should he use? Reich Flöter's blog, OpenBSD Hacker, Coffee Nerd, Founder, Ask Reich, Imaginary How-Tos and 10-Step Guides, Sewage, Drainage, and BSD Plumbing, bsd.plumbing /blog. Oh, I like that one. A replacement call for random, arc4random.com, or Coffee with Reich, copper.coffee. Oh, that's a URL. Oh, wow, that's a nice thing. But for now, it will just be Reich Flöter blog. Okay, yeah, good luck with the blog. And if people have suggestions for a catchphrase or a different name, then by all means, send it to Reich.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got some more detail in. If you go read the post, it walks through actually setting it up and integrating it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll look for it when there are a couple of blog posts about OpenBSD on it, and we'll cover that in a future show, of course.
This week's episode of BSD Now is brought to you by IX Systems. They're definitely the people you should talk to if you need a server for open source, because they have all the latest and greatest Intel stuff in stock and ready to go, and they know how it works and which one you need. The important thing when you get in touch with them is to explain what it is you need to do, not just tell them which hardware you want, because then you can take advantage of their experience and expertise about which combination of hardware is actually going to work the best for you. And speaking of that, they have their very schwanky new hardware, the TrueNAS X10, which is their third generation of their TrueNAS storage line. What's really nice is that the cost is not that high. You can get the base unit for about $5,500, and you can get it in various configurations. The 20 terabyte non-high availability model is under $10,000, and you can build a 120 terabyte configuration for under $20,000.
That's quite flexible.
I mean, space.
Yeah.
And with the two storage shelves, it can actually be updated or made as big as 360 terabytes, which is enough to support, or even with the 20 terabyte one, that's enough to support 7,000 virtual desktop instance VMs at a cost of about $3 per VM. That's a really nice way to virtualize the machines at your office. And the non-HA version is only 138 watts of power and 2 U's of rack space.
Oh yeah, that's part of the equation when you're buying new servers, how much additional cost of this system will, not just in just running it, but also, cooling and rack space and also the watts per minute and stuff like that. It all goes back into the equation of whether you need such a system. And IX System can help you in that way as well if you want to be a cost-effective system that still has the horsepower to solve your problem.
Yeah, it's basically everything you need ready to go, and it's fully expandable. So even if you start with a smaller one at the very low price tag, you can expand it all the way up to 360 terabytes of space and adding NVMe devices to increase your caches. And it's got upgradable 10 gigabit connectivity and everything you might need. So head over to ixsystems.com/bsdnow and get in touch with them. Tell them we sent you, and they'll be extra nice. And tell them
they're nice
what
by
your
default.
next project is, and let them do most of the work for you.
Yep. Good stuff.
Yes. So now, speaking of work, we have some interesting research here over from research.switch.com. about shell globbing. So this is, when you type ABC star to match any file that starts with ABC. And so they say, here's a straightforward benchmark. How long does it take to run ls A star B? How long does it take if you put more A stars in front of it? So for their benchmark, they created a file that's the letter A 100 times, then the letter B. And then they started running ls A star B, A star B, A star 3 times B, 4 times B, 5 times B, etc., and watched how long it took. As you can see from this little graph here, with 6 times, didn't take very long at all. Less than a measurable amount of time. With 7, it took almost a minute. That's weird. With 8, it took 9 minutes. What? Yeah. But turns out if you use ls and then grep, using basically a straightforward regular expression, instead of having ls do the shell matching, or rather the OS libc do the shell matching, you can find all 100 in about 5 milliseconds. Whereas it would take immeasurably long on the shell one. Yeah, so with A star 8 times, it took 7.2 minutes to do it with the shell, and 1.56 milliseconds to do it with grep. So
that's probably
700 or 275,000 times faster.
There's some filtering going on in grep already that makes that hopefully.
So they compared different shells. Looking at Dash, Bash, RC, ZSH, Plan 9's RC, KSH, TCSH, and CSH. And they found that they were pretty much all had the same problem, except old-fashioned Berkeley CSH.
Why is that?
So basically, the same thing going on here with the regular expression article. Backtracking was the obvious implementation strategy, and most implementations use it, but that causes this performance cliff. And so the exception was Berkeley CSH, which runs in linear time, means it takes the same amount of time always. More precisely, time linear to the number of start wildcard characters you have. He says, looking at this source code, it doesn't attempt to perform glob expansion itself. Instead, it calls the C library implementation of glob, which runs in linear time, at least on the Linux systems. So maybe we should look at programming language implementations. And they found that glibc, Ruby, Go, and Rust did the right thing. But Java, Perl, Python, and TCL, and the BSD libc did the wrong thing. They say, perhaps the most interesting fact evident in the graph is that GNU libc, the C library used by most Linux systems, has a linear time glob implementation, but BSDC, the C library used by BSD and macOS, has an exponential time implementation. They say in this in the graph there, PHP is not shown in the graph because its glob function simply invokes the host C library, so it depends what OS you run it on, how it works.
Okay.
They say then they looked at different FTP daemons and see what they did, and found that VSFTPD, ProFTPD, Plan 9's FTPD, and Netkit all ran in linear time, whereas Pure FTPD and TN-FTPD ran in exponential time. Although Pure FTPD cuts off early, they have a protection against a denial of service attack there by limiting the number of stars you can put in the glob and just returning an error if you put more than, I think, 6 or 7, so that it never ends up taking that long. They say the Netkit FTPD runs quickly on Linux because it relies on the host C library. If you run it on BSD, the Netkit FTPD also shows the problem.
This is a nice benchmark, actually.
They say, obviously, not many servers have a file named A 100 times than the letter B.
Hopefully
not. The pattern can be adapted to shorter, less useful names, which gives a denial of service attack against some anonymous FTP servers. It appears that TN-FTPD is derived from the standard FreeBSD FTPD, so some BSD systems may be affected as well. And they talk about initially they didn't make the connections to FTP and that this could be easily used as a denial of service attack or whatever. But in some research, they saw some CVEs going back to 2001 and some others going back to 2010, specifically for these type of things. And this is why some FTP servers have this glob limit directive that limits the number of stars that can be there to avoid the problem. Including there was one in 2015 where the same vulnerability in OS X's FTP server. They say, unfortunately, none of these protections address the cost of matching a single path element of a single file name. And they show an attack against WU FTPD from 2005.
Okay.
And they talk a bit more about it, and they have some details on the implementation of the actual code they used, showing where the problem is and how it all works, and what some of the fixes are. And in particular, they have some updates. NetBSD has fixed their libc glob limitation, and that will be part of the next release. And so I looked at it. It's relatively similar to the FreeBSD one, because I imagine they both came from the same original BSD code, but not exactly the same, such that we can just apply their patch. I had hoped to get to look at that at the hackathon we were at, but ran out of time. But hopefully next week at BSD Cambridge, maybe I can get somebody else to take a look at this, and maybe we can get that solved quickly. They also note that Perl has an update pending for the next release that will solve this, and Pure FTPD has added a check where they've lowered the limit so that a pattern must have no more than 3 stars in it to protect people from OSs that are not fixed yet.
Yeah.
And they also point out that in Python, what they do is just convert the globs into a regular expression and execute it that way.
Okay. Would be interesting to detrace that as well, to do the measurements, to find out the actual number of seconds or minutes it takes.
You don't really need detrace in this case. You can just time running ls, and I the way I checked this on my system was to create the file and do it with like 6, 7, 8, and 9 stars and watch how long it took.
Yeah, for that, if you go to real detailed measuring and want to fine-tune the last seconds out of it, then you would detrace. But other than that,
right. In this case, it's just a recursion problem. So.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see some updates there, some speed improvements, and more testing maybe on other systems.
So tell us about the next story.
Yeah, the next story is called the BSD VPS Providers Needed, and it's from torbsd.github.io. And
so in particular, this is from the Tor Diversity Project, which is a project that includes George Rosenman and a bunch of other people who are trying to increase the diversity of operating systems that run Tor nodes. In particular, the majority of them are Linux, and they want to get more OpenBSD, FreeBSD, and NetBSD in there, so that if there's a bug in Linux at some point, it doesn't take out the majority of the Tor network.
Yeah. Didn't they also have a session at BSDCan, like in the lunchtime?
Talked about this at BSDCan during one of the Birds of a Feather sessions.
Yeah. So there might be some activity as a result of that. But it starts with one of the TDP's recent projects is accumulating a list of virtual private servers, or VPS, that provide a BSD option. VPSs are generally inexpensive services that enable the user to only concern themselves with software configuration and not be bothered with hardware or basic operating system setup. In the pre-cloud era, VPS providers were the other people's computers that users outsourced their systems to. The same shortcomings of cloud services apply to VPS providers. You don't control the hardware, your files are likely viewable by users up to the directory hierarchy level, and the entropy source or pool is a single source for multiple systems. The same time drift applies to all timekeeping services. Nevertheless, VPS services are often cheap and provide a good spread of terms of geography. All a provider really needs is a few server-grade computers and a decent network connection. VPSs are still a gateway drug to bare metal servers, although it seems more and more of these gateways users stop at stage 1. Cheap systems with a public IP are also a great way to tinker with a new operating system. For this reason, the TDP created this list of BSD VPS providers. Some explicitly deny running Tor as a server, some just reference vague proxy services. Others don't mention Tor or proxies at all. The list is a start with currently just under 70 VPS providers listed. Input through various channels are already started, and TDP intends to update the list over the coming months. A first draft email and open letter addressed to the providers were drafted, and they are looking to speak directly to at least some of the better-known BSD VPS providers. We may be able to convince a few to allow public Tor relays, or at least published bridges. These providers could be new BSD users' gateway drug into the world of BSD Tor nodes. Running a Tor relay shouldn't be considered a particularly risky activity. Maybe we can adjust that perception. And let us know any input by email or GitHub, and we'll be glad to make updates. Yeah, so if you know a VPS provider that is interested or already does this, then get back to the Tor BSD Diversity project. We linked to it in the show notes, and you can get more information on their website.
And cut. Okay. Ready for the next segment?
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's see how are we doing so far. Anyway,
Cagedmonster.net. Wow, cool domain name.
we have 51 minutes so far.
Oh wow, yeah. This is with no interview, it's pretty much going over the document.
Yeah, this one is specifically for a week when we're not around anyway, isn't it? Actually,
yeah, then people just watch Twitter for any tweets on the actual conference.
Yep.
So we just mentioned the pizza night, and okay.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about this OpenBSD story to kind of pad out for time, but.
Okay.
And recording.
So, time for our Beastie Bits this week. The first one is avoid OS detection with OpenBSD, and it starts with, you know what we say about OpenBSD, free, functional, and secure.
Yeah,
so it's a longer one.
They say hosting a public server can lead to many different attacks, mostly random attacks, but you can get targeted by real attackers as well, who first will want to gather information like what OS are you running. Say actually finding what system runs on a server is easy. Nmap can usually tell just by sending a couple of packets.
They have some passive OS detection built in there. Yeah, OS detection tools use a lot of data like TCP ISN sampling, TCP options support and ordering, IP ID sampling, and Windows size check. So all these can give you information about what kind of TCP stack is being used, and from that you can relatively surely trace back which operating system is using this in which version, and similar things. But because we are running OpenBSD and using its powerful firewall named Packet Filter, or PF, we can do something about this. Because packet normalization under Packet Filter is called scrubbing, it will reassemble fragmented packets, protecting some operating systems from some forms of attack, and drops TCP packets that would have invalid flag combinations. Many options are built with Scrub. You can check them here. There's a link in the blog post. And the article will focus on two of them. The first one is random ID, and the second is NoDF. So random ID is what it does. It replaces the IP identification field of the outgoing packet with random values to compensate for operating systems that use predictable values. And this option only applies to outgoing packages that are not fragmented after the optional packet reassembly.
Yeah, so it means that it can re-randomize those so that when somebody's trying to fingerprint them, they won't see the predictable numbers.
Yeah, it's screw up their findings or don't give them any findings at all. So what NoDF does, it clears the don't fragment bit from the IP packet header. Some operating systems are known to generate fragmented packets with the don't fragment bit set. This is particularly true with NFS, and Scrub will drop such packets unless the NoDF option is specified, because some operating systems generate don't fragment packets with a 0 IP identification header field, but using NoDF in conjunction with random ID is recommended. So,
by applying these things, when you run Nmap and look at it, you'll see that the uptime will be reported as 0, and that the TCP sequence prediction will say is too difficult, and the IP ID sequence generation will be listed as randomized, and they will, it won't match any of the fingerprints. Although, at some point, you figure out that, oh, well, if it's that well randomized, it's probably a BSD.
Yeah, it's a cat and mouse game, but screwing up some scanners who shouldn't know about your operating system, because that's usually a precursor for a larger attack for a specific vulnerability, if there is one, give them a little bit of trouble to figure out what's behind your firewall. It's part of the security layering. Okay, yeah, check out that article and maybe add this to your PF config file to be a little bit more secure about OS detection.
Yep. Then I say they have another one here. A new, very small hotfix released today or yesterday over at TrueOS. We believe that this was breakage from the INO64 work that was merged into the Unstable branch and caused the TrueOS updater to have issues. After some tinkering, a patch to fix the updater is now available for both the stable and unstable branches. This update is installed using the built-in sysadm update manager. This is a small hotfix to adjust the way in which the updater bootstraps itself and updates a TrueOS system. Because this is an updater fix, many users may need to update the system twice, once to fix the updater and then once to actually update the system. Given feedback in our issue tracker or discussion forums, if you're still encountering problems with the updater after implementing this fix, make sure you open an issue.
Yep. Because the feedback is important, and if there are some regressions from that, then people should report this by all means. Our next little bit is Midnight BSD in VirtualBox install, which is a YouTube video people can watch to see how this is going to be done. And it's pretty much an install session from start to finish. And in VirtualBox, it's easy to experiment with.
In particular, this is by Lucas Holt, who is the guy behind the Midnight BSD project. So if anybody can walk you through setting up Midnight BSD, it'll be him.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's good to give it a run in VirtualBox and see what features it has and what it can do. We need a little bit more news from Midnight BSD. If they're doing good stuff, then by all means we should report them.
Mm-hmm. And then, so if you're watching this live, you still have a chance. Although if you're watching it, the recorded version when it comes out, we had to record a bit early to deal with our ridiculous schedule coming up for the next 2 months. You'll have missed the one we're talking about, but if you follow the link, you'll be able to keep up with upcoming ones. So if you live in the Portland area, there's this website called Calligator. I guess it's some combination of calendar and alligator. I don't know why. I guess it's a calendar aggregator. Anyway, they have events, and you can, if you search for the tag BSD, you'll see BSD themed events going on in Portland. And if you pay attention, there's actually quite a few. They have the Portland Linux/Unix users group, which has its meetings like once a month, plus an advanced topics meeting a second time during the month. But also there is BSD Pizza Night. BSD Pizza Night happens on a particular Thursday at least once a month. The next one is July 27th, although if you're not watching live, that one's already over, but pay attention for the next one. The BSD Pizza Night is a bunch of BSD people meeting up for pizza and drinks and talking about it for the evening, and it happens at a different pizza place each time. So they've been doing it for quite a while, so they've been to quite a few different places. But it means that there's a good chance that they will come to one near you soon. But you should definitely check it out. That's ends up being how I found my Google Summer of Code student. Was they randomly happened into this BSD pizza night and met up with some BSD pros like Rod Grimes and Michael Dexter, and got sucked into it all. And now they're my minion.
Yeah, you never know what happens if you go to one of those events. And
Yes,
it's easy to
but
replicate in other places.
I would very much love it if at least once a month I could meet up with a bunch of BSD people and just hang out for the afternoon or evening.
Hmm.
But yes,
Yeah.
you should check out, if you're in the Portland area, you should check out this Caligator site and see that they have lots of events posted here for, BSD pizza nights. You can see where they've been in the past. They're usually a later Thursday sometime in the month, and happen from 7 to 9 p.m. So if you've never been to one and you do show up to one because you heard about it here, make sure you're ready to tell us about that.
We can also tell you other cool things in our feedback and questions section, but before we go to that one, we should mention our sponsor for this section, which is Tarsnap, the online backups for the truly paranoid. So if you ever had the need to backup, and you know you did, and you still do, if you haven't done it yet, you should think about using Tarsnap, because if you have to have backups in the cloud, like Tarsnap offers, you have to secure them. And if you secure them, you should be the only person who has the decryption key. And that's what's happening in Tarsnap. So in Tarsnap, you encode locally on your machine, then the backups get uploaded to the Tarsnap cloud, and there no one will be able to access it because you're the only person holding the key. So not even the Tarsnap people or Colin Percival, who runs Tarsnap, can decrypt that. And Tarsnap has also made a couple of their reusable components. So the whole Tarsnap source code is not available as open source, but some of the components that are being used for Tarsnap are available. So there's the script key derivation function, the Kivalu data store, and the spiped secure pipe daemon can also be gotten or received from Tarsnap.
Tarsnap also had a release recently. They've added support for OpenSSL 1.1 and the newer API, and they've added an ISO dates option so that the dates will be printed in the regular, year, month, day, hour, minute, second format rather than the traditional Unix format. And they added an override so that when you ask Tarsnap to do decryption or encryption with a very, very strong key, and it thinks your system can handle it, it warns you about that, but there's now a flag to make it do it anyway. Ludicrous mode.
Yeah, let the CPU work a little bit longer and harder.
You can also see the actual changes between the versions by heading over to the Tarsnap or the Tarsnap Git repository. In particular, why would you trust any backup software unless you can read the source code?
Yeah, if you
There's
don't...
no other way for you to know, they can tell you that the encryption happens on your machine and the key never goes out to them. But unless you have the option of looking at the source code, then can you really trust that that's right?
Yeah. And that's why it's really for the truly paranoid people who are mistrusting everything and everyone.
So, question time.
The first one is from Andrew about BSDCan videos. So it's short and sweet. He writes, "Hi, Alan and Benedict. Did I hear Alan mention BSDCan videos? Is there a link somewhere to them?"
They're not out yet, but I'm hoping for them quite soon.
Yeah, the video crew has been busy recording, so they should. I'm not sure how quickly they got to the rendering, but I actually look forward to them as well because I haven't watched some of the parallel tracks that I couldn't get to.
I think at this point it's mostly verifying that the right title and speaker and so on name got put on each video, and then putting all the links into the BSDCan website. Hopefully soon. I know Dan's very busy, so I'm working on coordinating a volunteer with him so that they can get that all done.
yeah, and if we know that they are there and people report that to us, we will cover it in a future show, of course.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Andrew, for that question. Next up is Mark with the Rock64 board. There's a link here to www.pine64.org, and there's a link to the actual board. It has 4 gigabytes of DRAM, 4-core ARM system, and it costs $44. And he's hoping the BSD crew will support it, and it gets here one love from FreeBSD. So you have that board
we would hope so.
open?
I wonder how close it is to a regular Pine 64, which works quite well on FreeBSD. Although I know that I and a bunch of other people bought Pine books from the Pine 64 people, and we're mostly harping on the ARM guys to get those working first. But I would hope that the Rock 64 would be on their list as well.
Yeah,
and
with all these embedded boards.
Yeah, hopefully it's not much different than the Pine 64, and that makes it easier.
Yeah, code reuse would be helpful, and not having a specific code tree or subtree for each individual board revision or each individual manufacturing type that's out there. But it's good that people are getting more into the embedded space and want to use FreeBSD on it. And yeah, we should try to support that as much as possible. And if you have a board that's interesting or has similar hardware, then try FreeBSD or any BSD on it and see what messages you get or what errors are coming up, if any. Then report that to the developers, and that way we can get more support going. Okay, next up is Jason with a follow-up on UEFI and Beehive. So we had a question a couple of weeks ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And this is pretty much a follow-up because we asked if people knew about any specifics on UEFI and Beehive. So he writes, Gents, I wanted to touch base with this issue and let you know I sorted it out. While you could not directly leave me the answer, Alan did mention, I don't think Beehive has a way to store EFI bars, which led to a tiny bit of investigation. Simply put, Ubuntu/grub EFI does not follow the spec for EFI when it comes to default paths. He checked his Arch VM for the configuration he had there with systemd boot, also known as gummy boot, and found that it followed spec and placed EFI /EFI/boot/boot x64.EFI in the ESP and had no issues. So his problem was not that Beehive was losing settings, but rather that it never had them in the first place, and grub had decided to behave in a way that didn't follow the standard behaviors. Oh, I heard that before. While this would normally work perfectly fine, due to the lack of viable configuration store for the EFI bars, it will not work out of the box. So the simple answer is basically make dir /boot/EFI/EFI/boot and then copy the grub x64.EFI to that exact directory.
Yeah, so normally you can use an EFI variable to say, use this other path instead of the default path, but because Beehive doesn't store that, it fails to boot the Ubuntu one. Now we have the tools to manage the EFI vars in FreeBSD 11.1, as we talked about earlier in the show. So we're hoping that Beehive will have the ability to persist that as well, although that's going to end up requiring to be written somewhere. And I don't know if we want to have some little database file or something hanging off the side of your VM that stores that. So I'm not sure how they're going to manage that just yet. But eventually that issue will be easier to deal with. But yes, for now, the answer is to get Ubuntu to install it to the right place or copy it there to make it work.
But that's not all. We have a follow-up question also from Patrick about EFI booting. And
I guess this one's less of a follow-up question than him providing the answer that we were looking for.
Yeah, it's in a similar...
the problem is that, if he recalls correctly, Beehive does not emulate a proper EFI firmware that can store settings in some non-volatile area. Beehive doesn't have a place where it can store this, so it doesn't store the variables. So most importantly, the boot path, the location of the bootloader on the EFI FAT ESP is not stored. So regular server firmware and BIOSes can do this, and so Ubuntu works there. So the problem faced with running Ubuntu inside a Beehive is that Beehive installs under EFI Ubuntu instead of EFI boot, and Beehive's not able to remember that it needs to look there every time you shut it down. It might be possible to move stuff around, but I was reluctant to do so because I did not want to mess the bits up that belong to the Ubuntu installation and were supposed to be managed and maintained by the Ubuntu system. So what Patrick's solution was to install Refind, which is a dedicated EFI menu system that you would install in the default location, the bootx64. And then it brings up a menu of all the other EFIs it can find in the EFI partition and allows you to select which one you want. And then you can boot Ubuntu that way. So by installing Refind in the default location in Beehive, you get the menu and it will boot the one you want when it starts up.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's a dedicated EFI first stage bootloader that can then bootstrap more or less arbitrary second stage OS specific bootloaders, even Grub in this case. So you install that in the default location, then it will find that is able to call Grub in the default Ubuntu location. After fiddle with some of the settings just a little bit, you can eliminate the unwanted entries from the boot menu, set the default second stage loader, set a short timeout, provide fancy icons and so on, and you can have multi-OS installation just working. That's how I've used Refind on my laptop to choose between a vanilla FreeBSD, a TrueOS, and a Windows install that I use for recording interviews on my laptop that I use to give presentations at BSD conferences.
Yep, so there are multiple ways to solve that, and maybe Beehive will grow its own EFI functionality in the future, but for now we can work around this in different ways. And thanks for you guys sending us these solutions so people can use them as well. Yeah, that should be it for this week. Don't forget to submit us questions for our reader interview that we're going to have roughly in September. We already got a couple of them, but if you want to send us your own questions, then use the subject line viewer interview questions. And then you can pretty much ask Alan or me or both anything you ever wanted to know or you always wanted to know about us. And we'll cover it in that special show we're going to do in September, sometime around there. Yeah, other than that, thanks for watching this week's episode and see you next time.
Yes, make sure you send us more questions because, as I mentioned, our schedule is a bit crazy with BSD Cam. Benedict's got a trip, and then we got VBSDCon and EuroBSDCon all coming up. So we're kind of getting a little bit ahead in recording so that you get an episode every single week. But in order to make that possible, we need more questions. Otherwise, we're going to run out because of the number of episodes we have to record ahead of time. So please send questions to feedback@bsdnow.tv. And yes, for the interviews of Benedict and myself, we need more interview questions. So write those in with the subject viewer interview question, and we will get on top of that. And cut.
Could try a new thing for the opening.
Oh, what kind of new thing do you want to try?
It's the invisible purple, the invisible person in the room. So there's been a show a couple of years ago, a German. It was a weekly show or even a daily one from Monday to Friday, and so they had also a cold opening where they would start talking, and then they would be like, "What was that?" Ah, yes, and then they continued with some joke thing, and then that was basically the intro part.
Interesting.
Or I just try to hold out the now part. It's like a minute over and when is he going to say it?
Okie dokie.
The place to be and me. Just trying out different things. But we can start with the cold opening. The place to be is the... Okay. Wow. 50 inches a lot.
What's that?
Someone has been taking or looking at us at his 50-inch TV screen for the better part of the last 2 hours. Wow. Great.
Okay, so we're recording another live episode tomorrow.
Yep, I'll be there.
And then next week, we're gone to BSD Cam. So you'll get the episode we recorded just now.
Yeah, it's from the 2nd of
You'll get the
August,
episode we're just finishing now will come out next week. And the episode we record tomorrow will come out the week after that. But so next week we're off. The week after that we're doing double again. And the week after that we're doing double again.
Mhm.
And then we're off for 2 weeks. And then we're back and recording again. And then we're off for another week. And it's crazy. Important
But it
information
works.
though. I'll double check it, but the jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar has the dates when we're recording, so you can make sure you don't miss a live episode. And an episode will come out every week, the whole time. No worries.
Ooh, exciting. Which is why we need the questions from the users. Otherwise, we have to ask ourselves, what could be a good question? Oh, yes, yeah. Could be technical questions or the viewer interview question. No, we don't make a special episode just in German. Well, I could, but that would be a little bit weird. Well, not for the Germans, but... I could do the intro in German and everyone would be like, what was he talking about?
Except for all the German people.
Yeah.
And all the other people that speak German, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I've been like holding you up when you could...
Well, that's fine. What did I beat? No, anyway. Oh, is it something offensive? Okay, yeah, that's fine. I have the right to bear arms. Anyway, yeah, let's go. This week on the show, we're going to cover FreeBSD 11.1 release since it's out now, and we look at building a BSD home router, which is cool. People want to check out. But also we look at your own OpenBSD VPN provider and how you could do that. And to finish that off, we also give you a view of how to find the matching glob pattern that can be simple and fast, all in one big show of BSD. Now,
Remembered at the end.
yeah. Oh, now. Yeah. No. It's part of the trick.
BSD then. I mean now. I mean later. No, I mean now.
When? Oh, now. Yeah, a little variety. Otherwise, it gets boring.
It's
Or
like, this
maybe I
one
have
is,
to have a catchphrase for
BSD
each
from
new
the
year.
future, right? We recorded this now, and it will just magically happen in the future or something. Or we will magically be coming to them from the past. I don't know how that works. Anyway.
Yeah, it's time traveling all over again. BSD soon. Real soon now.
Okay, all done?
Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's it. See you tomorrow.
Yep.
Oh, we're getting the hang of this. After the conference days and weeks, we'll be like, wow, this was normal. I guess the August will be a little bit more stressful.
How so?
Well, for me at least, the travel parts and all that.
Right. I suppose I can understand that.
Yeah, but each trip is unique in its own way, and some is longer. The other ones are a little bit more involved in the BSD projects, and I have to finish my presentation for VBSDCon.
Yes,
But, yeah.
I need to bug somebody else about that who's presenting, and
They should provide a schedule soon.
yep.
But
There was, up until a couple days ago, there was a question whether two of the people that were accepted were actually going to come, and one of them is and one of them isn't. So that's mostly why the schedule hadn't happened yet. But
that's why. Okay. Yeah, I've been in contact with
got
them
it sorted out
regarding.
now. We know everybody who's coming, except for maybe one, and hopefully they'll have a schedule soon.
Okay, I'll be in one of the slots, so I'll be there and talk whenever people want me to talk. How hard could it be? In front of an audience of native speakers, mostly.
All right, I will let you go and wrap up some work here.
Okay, thank you, and see you tomorrow.
Yep, see you tomorrow.